And good morning again from Watson Drops. We have a special episode here with you from the general manager's office, Nick Lawler. Nick's going to do a little explanation about what this program is going to be all about and what the topics are that we're going to kind of try and cover today. Nick, good morning.
Morning, Kirby. Thanks for having me. Again, my name is Nick Lawler, General Manager of the Littleton Electric Light and Water Departments. As Kirby said, we're trying to have some more concerted effort of communication through LCTV for this coming future. Watson Drops will be aired more frequently, and I've committed to Kirby and to the public to give every other month, give an update from my office on things that I feel are important to the community, things that are happening behind the scenes, maybe not as visible to the public. And I'm proud to lead this great organization full of dedicated employees to the communities that we serve, Littleton and Boxborough.
So Nick, why don't you start us off with one of the larger projects that's impacting the town and some new development that's obviously happening up at 550 King Street with the whole Lapoli companies and their interaction with the town. And that's the sewer system. So what can you tell us about the status of it? When do you think you might be breaking some ground? You know, give us some background and maybe some updates here too, please.
Sure, it's my favorite project, the sewer project. There's been a tremendous amount of work, as everyone knows, put into this project, going back over a decade, really. And I feel like we're finally at a point where we're close to moving it forward. CDM Smith, who are the design engineers that we hired to complete the design of both the treatment plant and the collection system out on the roads, are done. The plan is in front of the DEP. It needs to be approved by the DEP. They give what is called a discharge permit. Once we receive that permit, we go out to bid. There will be probably some comments and tweaks that need to come to the design due to what the DEP gives us back. So they call it we're at 90% design completion, but it's effectively 100%. Just pending on the comments back from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. So we're hoping they have a window to review that design. It's a 90-day window, and it closes end of August, beginning of September. So we're hoping to have those comments back by then. The DEP is really short-staffed, so it might not be back by then, but that's what we're hoping for. And then once we get that back, like I said, we'll go back out we'll go out to bid and get the real numbers that everybody's dying to see.
So what do you think might be a realistic time frame, Nick, from the time that design is accepted and comments have been made, the bids get put out? And I know this is really crystal ball, but when do you think there might be some push or development that actually occurs down at the actual sewer site that you guys are designating?
Yeah, with a two-year build from start to finish. Obviously, if we get comments back in September, there is some time that you got to do bid advertising and get the bid spec 100% ready to go. So, say it gets out in October, it does put us in a kind of a bad spot for construction. Being in the winter in New England's not a great time to start construction. But there will be things that they can do throughout the winter to get started. It might not be anything that's magnificent, but at least they'll start the project. But probably really March or April is when you'll start to see things really taking off. But there will be, like you mentioned, the site, 242 King Street, is going to be the site of the treatment plant. There'll definitely be things that can happen there. There'll be two different contracts because the treatment plant's not really related work to the horizontal piping that goes in the ground for the collection system, so that'll be a separate contract. And obviously, there's times of the year that you're not allowed to open up roads starting in November, so there won't be much that can happen in the roads probably until next year. We also have the discharge site at the high school. It's potentially that could be done in the fall, but highly unlikely given the quick turnaround and we haven't had the proper communication with the school department yet and the school committee because we don't know when the project is going to go out to bid. So that could be an early spring start as well.
Sounds like you have a lot of communications to get in place along with the lining up of the project. Now, in this kind of a project, you kind of alluded to there doesn't really a singular critical path that you're following through that, you know, if the weather were right, for instance, you could start on the treatment plant, start on the plumbing, start on the treatment facility. Is that kind of a multiple phase approach to try and get the project in a shorter time frame? Is that possible? Or is it more of a sequential thing where, yeah, you got to have the plant so you can hook up to it and therefore you know where your piping's going, that routine? How's that work, Nick?
No, they can happen at the same time.
Okay.
There'll be two different contractors most likely doing the work. And most of the road work will be actually done at night because it's on King Street and Great Road. So the state permits for that work to be done at nighttime, similar to the work we did on Air Road.
Very good. I know that all the residents have been affected by this increase in price at the pump and the cost of power. How does that impact light and water, for instance? I mean, I know you've got a fleet of vehicles that are out there. They're doing, you know, maintenance. They're dealing with emergencies for trees falling, the whole routine. How does, you know, the price go doubling in essence sometimes of diesel? How does it impact how your operating costs are and how they get passed along to customers?
Yeah, that's a great question and something that we're all dealing with in our own homes, never mind at our jobs. The biggest impact right now for price increases, other than the huge projects that we're going to go at the bid, I mean, that's going to definitely impact the numbers for the sewer project, for any water main work that we had planned. Not just the increased project cost, but also the lead time and items are ridiculous, frankly. Try ordering a transformer right now, and they're you know what they used to be 12 weeks out, now they're 112 weeks out. Luckily, we've been a very proactive department over the years and have the warehousing in place to house a lot of these equipment that we've procured a long time ago and phase them in and out over time. But the lead times are scary. You know, one storm rolls through, one significant storm, and a lot of utilities could be looking for help from their friend utilities. Chemicals, the cost of chemicals for the water treatment side are up 250%.
Wow.
Last year. And again, you have the same lead time issues with chemicals that you have with transformers. And Justin Vancourt, who heads up our operations on the water side, has done a fantastic job making sure we get those deliveries in place, because you can't deliver water without the chemicals needed to make it safe to drink. And again, it's something that every water district and utility is dealing with across the country. You know, we've been advocating at the federal level to help utilities. I think we're often forgotten about when it comes to supply chain issues until there's a significant event, you know, hurricane down in Florida or something that could really shine a light on the need to make sure that we're procuring and manufacturing the goods that we need to keep the power on.
Well, Nick, it's actually a great segue. I understand you recently had a visit from a U.S. state congresswoman, Lori Trahan, to compliment you guys on what you're doing. Tell us about that public event and what the significance of that was in recognizing LELWD.
Yeah, the congresswoman came out a couple weeks ago, and it was a fantastic visit. She's been a true ally in our fight against PFAS, not just the water contamination that we're dealing with here in Littleton, but also from a federal policy standpoint. And she's also a huge advocate when it comes to the sewer department. I think she's known as the sewer queen down at the floor of Congress, which is not something I want to be called, and I don't think she does either, but it's a nickname that she has somehow inherited. But she's been a true ally to the department, and from the very beginning, she has called us a national example of how to deal with PFAS contamination, which means a lot, and it kind of reiterates what you had mentioned earlier, how great our staff is, and individuals like Dave Ketchen and Corey Godfrey, who and them in the water department, how they tackled this problem head on, from day one. That's put us in a great position to solve our PFAS contamination problem for two of our larger producing sources at Wickham Ave and Spectacle Pond, but also get federal funding. So it started early on. We got a 0% loan through the Mass Clean Water Trust, thanks to some of the advocacy that we've done over time. And recently, I think it was back in January, February, we received a 20% loan forgiveness off that state revolving fund loan that we put in for that project, along with the project for the raw water transmission main from Spec Pond to Wickham Ave. That could equate up to $5 million. It's 20% of the total project cost. It'll be between $4 and $5 million loan forgiveness. And my point to the Congresswoman, and she's listening, is that while we appreciate every penny that we receive, it's not enough. And the ratepayers of Littleton have taken on an extreme burden, and everyone sees it in their water rates, to get access to clean water. And federal funding is one way that we're trying to combat that burden, but we're also part of litigation at the federal level against 3M and DuPont to try to get rate relief that way as well.
So how does the ARPA project funding that was made available to municipalities, how did Lori figure in on that as far as, additional funding?
Yep. Yeah, the way it works is the federal government made that funding available, like you said, through ARPA, and the Infrastructure Act is another one that's gonna help. And then that money flows to the states, and the Mass Clean Water Trust was given from that federal funds a lot of money, and then they direct kind of where that money goes. So
you have to work at the state level, Nick, for that kind of money through Arciero and Eldridge to get a bigger piece of the pie, since we're identified projects in the ground making it happen that need additional funding.
Yeah, it's through local legislators. It's through the Congresswoman Trahan. I mean, she has influence, so you want to keep her abreast of what's going on and how we're spending the federal funds. And it's through the Mass DEP. They obviously they grade the projects. They help steer where that money should be going to.
Interesting. All right, so we've been talking a lot about PFAS, my favorite subject too. How are we doing with the water treatment plant over on Whitcomb Ave? I mean, I drive by it going over to Boxborough, and I see more brickwork going up and more scaffolding going up. How's things going over there?
Things are going fantastically. It's on schedule, which I'm not sure how often that's the case right now with those lead time issues we talked about. Winston Builders has been fantastic to work with. The roof is on, which is good. The vessels that treat the water for iron and manganese removal and PFAS removal are all in, which was a tremendously long lead items right now. So we're glad to get, again, being early in the queue, help us out to procure those vessels. There's really no major warning signs of items that are going to be delayed. Most of those items are in. We're shooting to be complete around November, probably around Thanksgiving time, that the project will be complete. Then there's a long startup process. And it's a complicated one because we're bringing in water from two different sources, and it's going through a couple different processes to remove iron, manganese, and PFAS. So it should be probably online, I would think, spring of 2023.
Sounds like a couple of good episodes out of Corey.
Yep, he's all yours.
Project updates. So a lot's happening on the Whitcomb Avenue site, but I know residents, abutters to the streets that are between Spec Pond and Whitcomb Ave have had a lot of activity going on. Tell us about that whole process, how well it worked, where we are with it, completed, that kind of thing.
Yep, we're done.
Okay.
No, that was an extremely disruptive project. We put in over 4 miles of water main some transmission, some distribution, mostly transmission, about 3.5 miles of transmission main to transmit water from Spec Pond to the new Wickham Ave treatment plant. But we also did work on Great Road to tie a loop in on our distribution system to improve water quality as well. But working closely with the residents of Littleton Police Department, the school department, because a lot of it was during the school year, and trying to get buses down Spec Pond Road during the school year when you have lanes shut down wasn't easy. Was a very rewarding project for that, because the community was great. We received very few complaints, and we were very disruptive to the roads in town. And I can't thank the residents enough to bear with us as we completed a very visible, disruptive part of the project.
I think residents understand that, a little pain is good and it'll get the job done faster. And they supported, just as they did at town meeting, the initiatives and the work that the LALWD does. And again, you can't say enough, Nick, that your group that you lead, you manage, there's stars. I mean, anytime I work with any of your fine folks, it's just, how can I help you? What can I do for you? And then I think it's the same thing that residents also see. So again, compliments, kudos to your crew. I'm looking forward to more of these from the general managers, from the GM desk. I appreciate you taking the time today to talk about what's happening with the sewer project, some events that are occurring that we really don't get to know about. And I'm looking forward to this, every other month kind of a cycle where we can, compliment and let people know out there what's news, excitement from your desk. So can't say enough thanks on that one, Nick.
I appreciate the time, Kirby. And if the residents have topics they'd like us to cover, please email those over to me at nlawler, Lawler, at lelwd.com. Be happy to take on really any topics that the community wants to hear about.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So next up, we'll be seeing Corey at some point in time, I believe. We're either going to be talking about water or sewer. So it's a busy, busy time down there for you fine folks. So thanks again.
Thanks, Kirby.